I am so excited today to have Chris Howard, the CIO and Chief Product Innovator at Slingshot, which is a software design and development company. And they're headquartered in Louisville, Kentucky. Chris, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and your role at Slingshot.
So I've been in technology for over 25 years, long time. It's kind of crazy to say. It's gone by fast.
I mean, Google has only been around for like 25 years.
No. When I came out, I remember going through when I first got into technology. I worked for Six Flags. That's where I first got started.
Wow.
And the BlackBerry was still around. So it's kind of embarrassing to say.
RIM, right?
Yeah.
No longer. RIP.
I remember when the iPhone came out. That whole experience. So my last 7 years have been with Slingshot. And before that, I worked for a property information company out of California. So, which was an awesome experience. It was very fast paced. A lot of the things I know today, I learned from that experience. And when I joined Slingshot, it was more of a software development type of organization. And I had been exposed to lean UX out in California. So I partnered up with the owner, David Galonia, of Slingshot, and I think we've done some great things over the last several years. 7 years, and
that's incredible.
Built a lot of products. And the products come in. So our team is a combination of product leads. So we have the product mindset within the organization. We have UX designers, some amazing UX designers, and some incredible developers. And as most people know, development comes in various forms. So we have mobile developers, web developers.
Well, not everyone knows that, surprisingly. And then also just from, I know you're talking about California, you learned lean UX. What's the difference between lean UX and UX?
There's a concept called minimum viable product. And our whole team is trained to focus on that. We try to zero in on what is the minimal set of features that we could build to test this idea in the market. We do work with some startup companies, but a lot of the work that we do actually is helping larger corporations rethink an existing product or automate a workflow process. I mean, we do it all. But that MVP mindset is really what differentiates us.
Well, and that's a perfect segue. When you think artificial intelligence, especially through that lens with larger enterprises, what comes to mind for you?
Well, it's interesting because for me, working in tech, artificial intelligence has been around a long time. Probably the most common form of it is machine learning. And in the big corporations, machine learning is applicable in so many different ways. Actually, in your own personal life, for me today, I've already engaged with artificial intelligence. I can tell you when I unlock my iPhone, recognizes my face. That's computer vision, a form of artificial intelligence. I had no idea where I was going today, so I plugged it into the map and, Apple Maps, Waze, whatever mapping technology you use, how it shows you the different routes and what is your best route. So that's artificial intelligence. Spotify, Apple Music, Netflix. After you watch or listen to a few things and it makes recommendations about, hey, you may like this. That is machine learning. That's artificial intelligence at play there as well. So it's been around a long time. It's in your life, whether you know it or not already. What's happened here recently with ChatGPT and large language models is it's just kind of exploded over the last year. And, there's really been some pretty incredible things that have come out in the last year that has brought it to the forefront,
It gave people the opportunity to have a form of AI that they can kind of just directly interact with and kind of see, oh, this is what AI is.
Exactly.
Like with maps, people kind of say, oh, it's the Maps app. It just does what it does.
Right.
Then with like ChatGPT, it's like, oh, this is AI. It automatically does this stuff for me.
It's like a human. I think what blows people's minds is that they can almost converse with this thing, and it talks like a human. In some ways, thinks like a human. So I think
it became consumer facing, and then
has a
exploded.
personality, I guess, right? So it makes it more interesting.
As far as Slingshot and AI goes, what is the current intersection between Slingshot's efforts with AI?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like we're in the early phases of it. So if you look at a company like Slingshot, we're a high tech company. creative thinkers. We help people solve problems through technology, and machine learning is easier. I mean, you can kind of recognize a machine learning problem. There are certain characteristics of that you look for, and machine learning. Obviously having the data available is a huge plus. So
For every, like, let's say 10 companies come to you, out of those 10, how many are actually data ready?
honestly, I would say more than not.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's, a lot of people now are on the cloud, especially the big corporations. They've been on the cloud for a while, which, when I say the cloud, I'm talking about mostly Azure, AWS, and
Microsoft,
Microsoft
Amazon.
and Amazon. They own everything, right?
Yeah.
A big portion of the
Yeah,
pie.
yeah. So a lot of people have thought through the data. You have relational databases, unstructured data, PDF files stored everywhere.
Yeah.
So we can do a lot with that. What's really interesting is when a company already has decisions stored. About like, let's say if you're an insurance company and you're processing claims.
It's a great example.
If you already have the claim data and how the decision was rendered, and that those decisions were generally right, then we can train with that, and you have a big leg up. It's much easier to do. Minus the training. The training is really the key aspect of it and the most tedious part. If you don't have that, then it's a little bit more effort, and
Now, when you say more effort, so, okay, these companies are coming to you data ready and just working with business owners, they want this yesterday. How long, let's say they have a pretty good, they don't have any training, but they have good data. How long would you say it takes to develop something in your world?
It's really difficult to say. I can give you an example of one that we did recently. There's a company, I think they're local, where you can buy these test strips for dogs and cats, and you can rub the test strip on their teeth, and it reacts and gives you some idea as to whether or not they have issues with their teeth.
I didn't even know that existed.
I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what that. But to do that, the customer had to take a number of different photos of the test strips. Feed those photos to us. So it's a tedious thing. You have to have some people dedicated to do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But if you were already sitting on all of those photos and you already had the
training,
the positive, whether it's a positive or negative, we can feed that in, and it's very fast.
Define fast. Like, what's a range?
It can be anything from a few weeks to months. We did give you another example. This is more in the large language model space. We work with a company called Reunicy, and they're kind of like a private Facebook.
Oh, wow.
So if you have a car club or a high school reunion or a college reunion or what have you, then you can
write this down.
Yeah, you can create the whole member. You can load everybody into the system. They have their profile. You can coordinate events with the group. There's a message board, photos. So what we're doing with them is we're taking that information and pushing it into a private ChatGPT instance. And then you can engage with it and say, hey, I'm going to this high school reunion. I don't remember. Like, I don't remember. I keep
and
up
we've
with
all
a few
changed
people.
a little bit.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
So, but you can engage with it and say, who do I have things in common with? Who should I meet up with? And it can look at the profiles, look at your profile, and give you some feedback on that. Or we did a cool feature where we had ChatGPT write a poem about the group. And so, I mean, there's lots of little cool things that you can do, and that really took us a couple of weeks. So it wasn't bad at all.
Are there any kind of general pieces of advice that you would give to companies looking to prepare their data for such integrations?
I think the main thing is the decision. If you can start storing the decision points, that's incredibly helpful. If you're not storing the data at all, then that's obviously something that you need to start doing.
An example comes to mind where you have a dealership who is invested in a company that manages their chat. So all of those chat conversations are stored by this company that they are obviously invested in. So let's say that they wanted to create their own, conversational chat bot. do you have experience where they can reach out to that company and say, hey, we're kind of taking this in-house? Is it easy and seamless for those, from your experience, for those companies to hand over all of those conversations, which I would assume is that
Yeah.
decision data?
We actually have a project very similar to that
Okay.
we're about to start. And that's in natural language processing space. So if you look
NLP.
if you look at AI, you have robotics, which I think is pretty fascinating, but we do nothing with it at Slingshot. So it's, there's large language models, which is, what's been the hot thing here in the last year. Natural language processing, which is what you're talking about. That's what you see with the chatbots. We work with, the thing that I like to think about is, we're very honest about this at Slingshot. So there's a company called Intercom. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they work in this space, and they provide a chatbot that's very sophisticated that you can do a lot with. Actually, I would say they're probably most of what you see when you go to websites and you have that annoying thing that pops up and they want to talk to you. I just bought a car recently. Car dealerships, they're insane with this thing. I mean, it's every website you hit, somebody wants to talk to you, and they just keep on you. And
Sometimes there's multiple ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. But Intercom is a good example. You can get out and take a look at them. They have some AI capabilities built into. But if you wanted to roll out your own, let's say, for example, you're a big company and you want to load all of your policies and procedures into an LLM and then let your employees engage with it and ask questions. Going back to that
Like
insurance,
a support, almost like a support.
yeah, like a support, like a buddy almost. That's we worked with another company that they do basically like claims, and their training time frame for getting a new person engaged and up to speed is 3 months.
Wow.
It's pretty sophisticated stuff. So
Sure.
And what you end up with in companies like that is that every state has its own regulatory compliance type stuff that you have to adhere to.
A lot of red tape with
a lot of red
insurance.
tape, and then you have your contracts with your the companies you're working with that make it even a little bit more sophisticated. So getting somebody on board takes about 3 months, and then you have to train them on that one specific area. And if you want to move them, then you're retraining them. So it's so we've looked at. We're working with this company to load all of that into an LLM, and then through natural language processing, give them almost like a little entity that they can engage with and ask questions, and then it can give suggestions along the way, to help them navigate through that claim and make good decisions. So think about
Reducing the operational costs significantly with training, and then just the time of whoever would have been the trainer, their time is not then invested in.
Yeah,
I don't want to say basic questions, but things that a buddy could essentially answer.
100%. And every company out there, every corporation that has some sort of process like that, I keep thinking about insurance space because they're loaded with it. But anybody that has that, banking is another one. It's a huge advantage there and totally feasible today. Actually, even reasonably easy to implement for people that know what they're doing. And so as long as you have the data, that's the.
So going back to that dealership example, they can export that data from the current chat provider, and they can create their own.
Yeah. I'll give you one other example. So I talked to a company yesterday that's a longtime partner of ours, and they're sitting on 3,000 different contracts with companies that they work with. 3,000.
That's a lot.
And each contract is 30, 40 pages long. So just mining that, if you have a question about the contract. So LLMs and NLP, it's perfect for that. You can load all of those up and then kind of ask your questions, interrogate it, and get right to some answers, rather than going through and reading page after page, which sounds pretty miserable.
30 pages. That reminds me, for law offices too.
Yeah.
Like that to me is just a natural segue for them.
Exactly.
We've been talking quite a bit about large language models, LLMs, and those have really just exploded in sophistication over the past 5 years or so. I'm curious, since you have 25 years in tech, you said that you've been well aware of AI from well before ChatGPT. What are your thoughts on kind of this recent just upscaling in ability, capability of these technologies? And in terms of AI history, is this kind of the biggest thing in your lifetime that you've seen with AI?
So I started playing with the large language models. I think it was Dolly. So if you mess around with ChatGPT, they have this whole library, which are probably of GPTs,
And
right?
yeah, you can create your own.
Just crazy. And so my kids, I have a household of teenagers, and last summer they were just laying around in the house during summer break doing nothing. Sometimes I feel like we're running a hotel.
I'm sure some listeners can relate to.
Yeah. So I decided I'm going to take a photo of the front yard from the window, and then I'm going to have Dolly insert a lion into the front yard, and then I'm going to text that to them and say, whatever you do, don't go outside. And so I texted to them, and they're all, they're like, "Is this real? Are you serious?" But you know what? You could see back then, faces were a major issue with generative AI.
Yeah.
And so you can almost always make out.
You can tell.
Yeah, you could tell. Like the lion, if you zoomed in on it, it had a really messed up looking face. I don't know what was going on there. But just how rapidly it's evolving is both fascinating and maybe a little concerning at the same time. It's come a long way really in just the last year or two. And thinking back to, I was talking about the experience I had with mobile phones, and how if you look at the iPhone and how it's evolved over the years, it's been somewhat slow. I mean, it's taken.
You're
time,
at 15, 16, iPhone 16, whereas take ChatGPT, we're already at iteration almost like what, 5?
You're on GPT 4, and I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure 5 is in the works. I don't know.
And that's like what, an 18-month
it's
runway
pretty
there?
fast, pretty fast.
So, sticking with kind of the concern side of it, there's a lot of concerns, lots of fear. Sometimes it feels like it's outweighing the good of this technology. What are you most fearful for?
I am a tech guy, but I'm also a creative. I love art. I love movies, architecture. That's a big part of why I work at Slingshot. I like helping companies realize their dream. Everybody has this dream idea of their product, or even if you work in a big corporation and it's your system that you deal with every day, you want it to be the best it can be. So I think there's I worry about the creative element of things. Years ago, I traveled to, I think it was in Spain, and I walked through there was a Picasso museum, and I remember walking through and looking at each piece of art and just being amazed and really wishing that I had that, that talent. And, this guy's painting portraits of people that look like photos. And I think he was in his teens, it's when he first started. So I don't want to see AI eliminate that or even start to fake it. I think movies, if you look at movies, I love Shawshank Redemption. I mean, I'm a movie guy. Star Wars. I'm a tech guy, so Star Wars. Yeah,
Okay,
I love it.
What's your favorite?
Probably Shawshank Redemption.
All
I think.
right.
Morgan Freeman. I mean, I think that guy's amazing.
Come on.
Yeah, he's amazing. So just recently, OpenAI released Sora, which you've probably seen.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a concerning moment for me because, you watch it, you can still tell that the videos are AI generated, but they're more subtle. Like you have to look. If you check it out online, you'll see a video of a woman walking through, I think it's Tokyo.
Yes.
And so you can pick up. You really can't tell that it's not a real actress until you start looking at the way she's walking, and that's a giveaway.
But you have to look. Like
you have to really look. So I really don't want to see movies that are entirely AI generated, because I think that is like what Morgan Freeman does. That's a gift, and it's something that I'd like to continue to see the next generation, the next Morgan Freeman. And I don't want him to be an AI generated
Morgan
actor,
Freeman. Yeah.
And look at that Sora's animated videos. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's like that might put Pixar out of work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the if you look at the pirate ship one where they're floating in a coffee cup, that one's incredible. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
So,
No, human generated.
yeah.
My thoughts in that area when it comes to AI and creativity is that the major limitation of AI is that it cannot have common sense. There's that kind of what we call, whatever common sense is within human consciousness. AI just, you can't teach it that, you can't give it that. All these kind of small little details that any human
Right.
being will kind of just automatically get and understand, it just does not have access to. And so that's, and that kind of shows, I think, in its efforts, and that, at a certain point you can say, yeah, that looks a little off, when it gives you something like with ChatGPT, for example.
Yeah, you can.
Like you ask it for something and you're always, every time you're going to have to edit it someplace, because it's just like, oh, that's, a human would never say that.
That doesn't sound like me.
Yeah.
I'll say too, I think there's, I remember when I first, cause I worked out of California for years, and Teslas.
He keeps bragging about that.
So I love Kentucky. I like where I'm at. I don't want to be a California. But I remember encountering Teslas for the first time, and out there they were all over the place. And I thought, I remember coming home and thinking, this is going to change everything, and Tesla is the way that the self-driving is, that's AI as well. I mean, that's computer vision, right? So lots of different devices, looking at street signs, stoplights, recognize. So you have to train it on what a stoplight looks like, what a street sign looks like. So it's machine learning, computer vision. So I remember coming home and thinking, this is going to be a game changer. These, one day soon, I want to be able to summons a car. It's going to pull. It's not going to be my car. I won't have to own these things and or maintain them. And I'm driving down the road. I see AutoZone, like that's gone. The driveways, expanded front yard, garages, the new man cave. So I mean, you're just going through all these things that it's going to impact. Car manufacturers, car dealerships, probably gone. I mean, or something entirely different. But here we are, 10 years later. I don't think anything's changed. We have better adaptive cruise control. I would say that. So I think there's some self-protection. If you look at like society, we
Self-preservation.
You think of like Ford. Do they want to? Is there any advantage to them to having fully autonomous cars? Probably not. So I think some of that will happen. You see some of that already happening, regulatory compliance coming into play. It's kind of the Wild West right now when when you look at like ChatGPT and its equivalents or larger language models. And I think that'll probably tighten up over time. So I don't know. I don't know how far this is going to go. But if you look back to like autonomous cars, we are nowhere close to where I thought we would be. I'm really disappointed about that. I had to just buy a car. I thought I owned my last car, years ago.
Yeah, it's easy for you to go to like very dark very quickly too.
It really
like,
is.
okay, no one's going to have driveways, and here we are, like you said, 10 years later. So, just in that vein, what would your prediction be here over the course of the next 10 years? Like, where, if we do this podcast again, and you come back 10 years from now, I mean, what industry do you think will be the most affected?
Like I said, I have teenagers, so I think about their college education. I'm like, what degrees make sense now? Because I'm thinking about this coming, and it's, I work in software. So the software space, there are lots of, we're dealing with Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot today. So it's kind of like a buddy that rides alongside our developer and helps them make good decisions. If you're in the software space, years ago, I encountered pair programming, which is where you have two developers working alongside one keyboard, two developers. They're working together on the same task. You would end up with amazing quality, but it's incredibly expensive.
Wow. I bet.
We would never be able to pull that off.
Huge capital side alone. Yeah.
But you're kind of getting to that now again with AI. So now you have a developer and this AI partner working alongside them, making them more productive. So I think we're all going to be impacted. The best thing to do is to embrace it, and look at how it can make you more productive. So I do that every day, really. Like when it comes to, in my role, I have to do a lot of documents, write a lot of stuff for sales and marketing, and do a lot of statements of work, stuff like that. And I lean pretty heavily on ChatGPT now to help me get started. So I'll get something out of it, and then I'll modify it to where it sounds like me. It sounds like Slingshot. It fits us. But I can take this thing that would normally take me an hour or two, and I can condense it down to about 30 minutes, and I hate doing that thing anyway, so
Exactly.
it's
You'd
so I love
rather
it,
spend your resources
yeah.
somewhere else.
The people that run our projects, they write user stories. That's how we describe how a system should work, from the end user's perspective. And our developers and testers, they'll all study that and they implement it. And there's a GPT that will write your user story. So I can go say, give me the user stories for a typical login. And it'll give me 10 different stories that describe password resets and authentication and all sorts of stuff. And nobody really, I haven't met anybody that really loves writing user stories. So, so it's, I think
such
it
a
makes
great
us,
tool.
yeah, it's an awesome tool for that. But as far as like who's going to be most impacted, I always think accounting. I think it's really good at math, generally speaking.
Yep.
Like recently we have one customer that every month, they're pretty sensitive about their invoice. So I give them more detail about it and do a lot of line charts and stuff like this, that's pretty sophisticated stuff. And, so I've turned to ChatGPT for that. I'll send the data in and say, give me 2 lines that represent this data. And it'll give me back the chart, drop it in the email, send it off, I'm done. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. So it's incredible for that. But I think accounting will be heavily impacted. Software space, we're going to be impacted. Our designers, they're already, dealing with it. And, we lean on it some for different images that we need. Nothing crazy really, but I hope that we don't get to the point where it's doing all of the UX, because to me that's sort of an art too. Like when we do UX, we'll look at the person that we're building the app for. We want to know them. We want to know what are
What makes
your
them
apps.
tick.
Like what do you do? If it's a older demographic, they're going to be a little different than younger. So you deal with a different subset of apps on a daily basis. So we don't, when we build an app, we want to make sure that it kind of fits into your world, that it doesn't come with some large learning curve. And there's an art to that, I would say.
I agree. And I think that's the gap. Connor, to your point about the common sense, the emotional connection, it can build it, but is it designed to fit into that person's world?
Yeah.
That's a great example, Chris.
And you bring up a good point about just wanting to know what they want on a UX side. And AI, you can keep telling it, give me this, but it might not get it exactly right. So you kind of need that human oversight. Are there other areas within your industry or just company that you would always want human oversight for no matter how sophisticated the AI gets?
With all of our projects, we have a lead developer that's assigned to all of them,
Okay.
that is responsible for pretty much all aspects of it.
That's like you have a lead account manager.
Yeah,
So that
okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. And when you do that, it's a really sophisticated world now with technology. I mean, you see all these companies getting hacked and their data stolen. And so when we build something, we're thinking about functionality, building it in a way that it's easy to maintain, and then security. So I like having that mind there, that experience, people that can think through it all and give us our best shot of deploying something that's very useful, easy to maintain, and secure, So I don't trust AI with that yet. Yeah. Maybe it'll get there. I don't know. The other is sales and marketing. So we have, if you look at Slingshot, we're like every other business. I mean, we focus, I would say, as a CIO, and maybe most CIOs, I'm in a small business. So at least 50% of my job is in the sales and marketing space. I'm either helping with different content that we're publishing out there, sometimes writing some of the content because we're a tech company. I'm on almost every sales call.
Yeah.
When it gets to the closing part, I'm generally
Of course,
there.
they want to talk to you and be comfortable with you.
Yeah. So it's, so AI has played a big role in that space, but it's a contributor. It's not, I can't ever see a point where it's going to take over our sales and marketing. It's going to make us more, it already has, it's made us more productive. We can scale better. So we're not spending as much time doing the things that generally none of us like doing.
Exactly. Like an automated emails, for instance, like an email drip campaign that's a little bit more personalized. Those things that salespeople don't love doing. I feel like AI can be a very good tool.
When I get on these sales calls, a lot of times you don't know the other person that you're talking to. And obviously there's advantages to understanding their background. And
Sure.
so used to, I would look up on LinkedIn and just get a feel for who is this person. Are they high tech?
they
Are they
connected to?
where are they? Right, all that stuff. So I started using ChatGPT. I'm like, well, maybe I can ask, because I use the 4, which is more current. So I tried it out on me, and the first response was spot on. He's like, this guy works at Slingshot. He's big into lean UX, all this kind of stuff. And then I asked, well, where did he work before Slingshot? And the response was, I have no idea who that Chris Howard is, but it's not me, And so so I'm like, well, I was so excited with the first response. I'm like, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah,
I
this
can
is
get on
awesome.
every call and I could just ask about this person. Give me a quick little background on them. And it went off the rails fast. So
It's the common sense thing. Like there was that big case with a lawyer who relied on ChatGPT. He said, just write me a brief and give me some sources for like cases and just, that support my argument. And it gave him cases. They just weren't real.
yeah.
So it doesn't really, it hallucinates is what they
Yes,
say.
yeah, it
Yep.
does. Yeah, it
So
does.
it's like, it'll give you what you're asking for. It just might not be what you need.
What I've realized is that it's awesome if what you're asking it for, personally, like you understand it, what the facts are. I'm okay with it because I can correct the things where it goes off the rails a bit. But if I don't know that person's background, like the example I was using before, if I really don't know it, I don't trust it to what it's given me. It's proven that it sometimes is inaccurate. So I can't trust it for that.
I couldn't agree more. And utilizing it as a tool, and you mentioned earlier just the first draft, right? Get it started, but you need that human oversight. And Chris, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Is there one thing that piece of advice or want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
There are a lot of doomsday.
There are.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think for the reasons that we've talked about already, I don't think it's capable of that. And I think regulatory compliance, hopefully that will catch up. It's not really there yet, but hopefully that will catch up. And
The Department of Justice just hired somebody like 2 weeks ago.
I think it's a hard thing to do, if you don't have a background in it to write the regulatory, so they have to build that up, but and generally speaking, Europe leads in that space. I think, it's kind of interesting, but I'm not fearful of it. I think you should embrace it. It's been in your world for years,
Whether you know it or
whether
not.
you know it or not. Yeah, and in very useful ways. I don't remember looking at a physical map. I feel like I've always had Waze or Apple Maps or whatever. I love having AI embedded into music tools because I get to encounter stuff that I would have never seen before.
Quality of my life is
it's much better. So I think there's going to be more of that, mostly with these large language models. In the business space, it's going to help. It's going to take some time, but it will be more of a helper than it will be a job replacer, in my opinion. So to make companies more scalable.
I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much. If our audience wants to get in touch with you, how and where do they find you other than ChatGPT?
Yeah. So our website is slingshot.com.
Slingshot.com. Perfect.
That's the best place to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Chris. This has been amazing.
Yeah, I've had fun. Thanks for having me.